Folks, welcome to an all new episode of So Bad It's Good. This is your pal Ryan, and this is your Thursday episode. We are doing The Valley episode 14 recap. We are one episode from the season 2 finale that will lead into a 3-part reunion, and that is all we are doing today. We're just talking about the show. There is nothing else that happened today. Thursday, nothing happened this morning of note to talk about. So let's get right into this recap. I think Jax, obviously, we're back from the beautiful Hawaiian trip where Dodie and Luke got engaged, and Jax is back, and I think he's fitting in very well with the cast, and I think he's, I think it's going to work. I think he's definitely coming back for season 3. And no, are you kidding me? Oh, what is going on, folks? Jax Taylor has decided to leave the Valley. That's right, folks. At 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, it is the Instagram post heard around the world. Our friend Kate Arthur from Variety broke the news that Jax is leaving the Valley. And we're going to read this article, and we're going to go through it, and we're going to also remind you guys of when Jax left Vanderpump Rules in 2020, and there's similar language used in both, and I hate to be a dick. I hate to be a dick. I'm of so many minds about this, and I've seen so many people be celebrating and things like, like I get it. And there is an element of humor to it, I guess. But at the same time, I talked to Taylor Crumpton yesterday, and we were talking mainly about Love Island USA, but it did go to Jax, and, Taylor was saying, Bravo does need to let Jax Taylor go. And I think we've been debating this for the last couple of months. And we've almost normalized certain behaviors of his. Of course, we've normalized them since 2013, but we've especially normalized them on The Valley. So I think this is the right move. I am still very surprised that they did this. And make no mistake, I do not think he chose to leave on his own accord. I think this was... I think it's worded in a very specific way where I do think the door is open for him to come back at some point if he is able to get his shit together for a long period of time. But what I've been saying these last couple of weeks, and I'm sorry to get so deep and dark so quickly in the show, we usually like to get deep and dark on the second hour, is that I really truly worry about Brittany. And every time I say that, I hear Jax Taylor's voice in my head going, "Oh, she ain't no bowl of roses either, sweetheart. Come on. She's playing the victim." Truly, we are watching like such epic proportions of gaslighting towards this woman. And whether you like Brittany or not is really of no consequence, because what we're seeing is wrong. The last scene on this week's The Valley is a perfect example. Now, not Bravo, but 32 Flavors, the production company led by Alex Baskin, in some ways did Jax a favor by not letting him go on that Hawaii trip, and by showing him in very small moments rather than giving him big storylines over these last 4 or 5 episodes. And I think when you do give him a scene, it becomes so dark and so jarring that you almost forget about everybody else in the show. And you're like, okay, Janet ain't that bad. Danny, I think he's okay. Like you start negotiating with yourself. And the thing is, I really go back and I don't go back and forth on if he should leave or not. I just go back and forth of what is the reality of the reality. Is if we are to take Jax's behavior on this show towards Brittany, on this season specifically, on the second episode of this season, he blames her for him having to go to the rehab mental health facility. Oh, I'll never forgive you for this. And so if we're to take that reaction then to him losing what he refers to as his dream job, something he worked so hard to get back on television, if that is taken away from him, even though it is based on his own behavior and actions, and he has had a team of people around him to try to keep him in line, and yet still manages to blunder and kind of bust things up for himself. But I think with people that I've seen like Jax or that remind me of Jax, they just point fingers everywhere but themselves. Now, there is that hope, and I will say I do have hope, is that, man, I hope he stays sober. I hope he is able to commit to therapy. And I was trying to think of oh, maybe this means he can spend more time with his son. I was trying to think of like ways that this could be positive for Jax. It's going to be positive for the audience. That's for sure. But, I get scared about how he will treat Brittany from this point on. It's almost the cameras were able to not maybe hold him entirely accountable, but it was able to have some sort of watchdog on him and make us aware of it so that we seem to have done this in droves, voice our opinions in such a negative manner. And I don't mean negative as in like how horrible of us, just to say this is wrong. Look at this. This is crazy. But remember, they only shoot this show 3 months out of the year. There's 9 other months that we don't know. This man also rage texts. He does all of these things. And he does. He has a team of people, He has his publicist and his manager and all of these people that have tried so hard, it seems, to make sure that Jax doesn't blunder, and he keeps blundering. And I do think his Watch What Happens Live appearance a couple of weeks ago, I think that was one of the final nails in the coffin for him. That was and I think, even though Andy is not a producer on Vanderpump Rules, and even though people like to point at Andy and say he's in charge of everything, he's just not. He is not the president of Bravo. At one point, he was head of production, and he is not that any longer. And he is insulated, but I do think I think he even felt it that night. It was so chilling. And what we've talked about on this show, and I don't think I'm the only show to do this. My God, I don't think so. In fact, to be honest, I think I've been kinder to Jax this season than most, because I don't know. I really go back and forth and argue with myself about all things Jax. But I do also remind myself that there is a difference looking back 2 years later from Sandoval to Jax. Sandoval might have been morally reprehensible and hurt somebody that I really liked, but I was never worried for Ariana's safety. I just wasn't. But I will say I'm in this weird position, and I think a lot of us are, that I do worry about Brittany's safety. And I don't really know Brittany on a real level. And I do know that these shows are not fake, but I do know that there are elements that are manufactured to a degree. There are real emotions, there are real feelings, but sometimes it is manufactured to put on television. And that's, guys, how professional of a sound was that? Okay, that's a little bit of an opening statement, and let's read Jax's statement from this morning. This is from Variety, Variety.com. Kate Arthur, who wrote a great article about the Valley a couple weeks ago, which we went through with a fine-tooth comb on this show, and I think that was another nail in the coffin. The headline reads, Jax Taylor not returning for The Valley, Season 3 to focus on recovery. Bravo future uncertain. The knotty question of whether Jax Taylor would return for Season 3 of The Valley has now been answered. Through his team, Taylor has issued a statement saying he is stepping away from the Bravo show himself in order to focus on his recovery and mental health. The statement, obtained by Variety. I love that, obtained by Variety. Was it like thrown at like a glass window at the Variety offices? Like, we've obtained the statement. The statement reads, after an incredibly challenging year and many honest conversations with my team and producers, I'll be stepping away from the next season of The Valley. Right now, my focus needs to be on my sobriety, my mental health, and co-parenting relationship. Taking this time is necessary for me to become the best version of myself, especially for our son, Cruz. But also I commend him for not saying I'm a work in progress. That is what we call growth. This is, if you were to take this on its face, you would say, hey, ChatGPT, what is going on here? No, you would say, okay, this is all good, right? If you didn't know Jax and if you didn't watch The Valley, you'd read this and go, wow, this guy is really going to get his shit together. But we've watched Jax since 2013. So I think a lot of us have a different relationship to this statement. But all of this is true. He should step away. He should have made that decision to step away. In fact, what I've said from the very beginning of The Valley is that he should not do this, or he will risk everything that he says are the things that are nearest and dearest to his heart. And at that time, it would always be my beautiful wife and my son, Cruz. But remember, what we're seeing on The Valley takes place after the 31 days that he spent in that mental health rehab facility, okay? Now, what we're seeing is after that, and we find out in this episode, as it was hinted 2 episodes ago, that he is not sober. And he told us immediately out there after he got out that it was just drugs, and also anger is my problem, not cocaine. But he said, I'm done with the cocaine, but I can still drink. Brittany says, oh, you're doing shots. Guys, I don't know how it happened, but my Brittany even got worse than last week. I don't even know what her actual voice sounds like. Oh, Jax, you're doing shots. But Brittany says he is drinking at his Jax's Saloon, which, by the way, I do want to clarify. I do know it's called Jax's Studio City, but I like to call it Jax's Saloon because, I don't know, I like cowboys. That happened, and then after they wrapped filming, which we're going to see next week, another inciting incident happened with Brittany and his son, I believe in a car, if I'm not mistaken. And he had to go back to a rehab mental health facility. And if I'm not mistaken, it was the same mental health facility. And this time he only stayed for 17 days. But on a positive note, that was when he decided to really remain sober from drugs and alcohol. And I don't know, but I do think that he has been able to remain sober. But it's hard because he has lied so much that his castmates have said, or even us, the audience, has caught, that I don't know. But he allegedly is being drug tested. Brittany can drug test him at any point. And on the after show this week, which is still up on Peacock, so watch it now before they yank it like they did last time, is that Brittany says sometimes Cruz is allowed to be at Jax's overnight. So that is a positive step, because I think regardless if he's on TV or not, is that I think, unless we're just horrible monsters, we want him to be a functioning parent. And part of it also is like, oh, fuck, how is he going to pay half of the doctor's bills for Cruz if he doesn't make any money? And I guess that's not our problem. But that's the problem with reality television, is that we're almost forced to worry about these doofuses for the rest of their lives. Like, oh, no, now we have to take care of Jax for the rest of his life? He says his podcast makes millions of dollars, which, oh, give me a break. Like, I'm like, you better be podcasting every day like I do at this point. If that's the case, you can make $5 million a week. So the way this is worded is, just from covering these shows for so long, my guess is, what I would pay attention to is the many honest conversations with my team and producers. So we know his team is Ryan Revel, his manager, and Lori, his publicist, who also represents Brittany as well, which, is obviously weird. And I can't imagine how Lori does her job, and especially in these intense times. But I think she probably loves it. That's what PR is all about. And I think also by representing both, it's a way to almost protect Brittany in some ways. And she seems to almost have a sisterly / motherly vibe with Jax. There's been so many rumors over the years, but it does seem like, and also, if you really know these people in real life, I think it's the same thing with Jason Caperna, how we all question of like, well, why is he friends with Jax? Is that if you're friends with somebody, it's a different relationship than a viewer watching a television show where we can make really snap judgments and decisions. But think about all of the people in your life that are troubled. Think about that. And in some cases, we completely shut them out of our lives. It sometimes gets to a point where we have to do that. But most of the time, you deal with it. Most of the time, you try to tell yourself you are helping this person. and that your friendship is something that you pride yourself in because you would never turn your back on somebody in need. And they think this person is in need, right?
It is your pal Ryan once again to talk about the amazingness that is Quince. Listen, as you know, I'm not into chasing trends, but I am all about stuff, and especially as I'm on my health journey that fits right, feels good, makes you look great, and it actually lasts. And that is why I keep coming back to Quince. I have used them now for over 4 years. Their lightweight layers, their high quality staples have become my everyday essentials. Look at the, if you're watching this right now, look at it. This is a lightweight, breathable, beautiful navy sports jacket that I'm able to fit in again. And it has lasted for 4 years and it is beautiful. Quince has the kind of stuff you'll actually wear on repeat like breathable flow knit polos, crisp cotton shirts, and comfortable lightweight pants that somehow work for both weekend hangs and dressed up dinners. And the best part, everything with Quince is half the cost of similar brands. Go to their website, you will see. They do this by working directly with top artisans and cutting out that middleman. Quince gives you luxury pieces without the markups. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. I use this. You need to be using this too. You go to the website right now, quince.com, and you are going to be walked through men's clothing, women's clothing, baby and kids, gifting. Everything that you need is right there for your choosing. So, stick to the staples that last with elevated essentials from Quince. Go to quince.com/so bad for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/so bad to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/so bad. And I'm on the website right now. I'm literally going to buy something right after I finish. Okay, bye.
Um, it says in March, ahead of the show's season two premiere on April 15th, Taylor revealed that he had been addicted to cocaine, on and off for more than 2 decades. By stepping away, Taylor, who turned 46 on July 11th, I'm going to need to see records on that, avoids the high likelihood of getting fired and increases his chances to return at some point during the show's run. Bravo has not issued a comment, and that nails it exactly. So, first off, I don't think he avoided getting fired. I think that was coming. I think it's almost like a Dorinda medley. It's Jax has been put on pause. And by doing this and not blasting Bravo or 32 Flavors or Alex Baskin or anybody, by taking the L and saying it is my choice, he has left the door open to come back at some point. Whether we like that or not, I believe that was presented to him. And like I said, just like friendship, these production companies, as much as we make them monsters, do ultimately care about these people. They are also trying to commodify human behavior. So it is a very slippery slope. They are trying to create the most drama, but sometimes that drama gets so out of hand that they can't do anything more. Like, it is interesting the litmus test that the audience gets put through of what we are able to accept and what we aren't. And those lines have been blurred and blurred and blurred over the years, but it has gotten to a point where this is obviously too far. But if Jax keeps his nose clean, and that's usually just like a turn of phrase, but I truly mean keeps his nose clean and doesn't harass Brittany, I do believe in a year or two there is a possibility of his return. The article continues. Taylor's transgressions have been chronicled on season 2 of The Valley, the finale of which will air on July 22nd, followed by 3 reunion episodes. 2 days before the season started production in July 2024, Taylor hurt his estranged wife, Brittany Cartwright, in their Valley Village home by flipping over a coffee table which hit her knee. He then proceeded to throw furniture and punch the wall while their 3-year-old son Cruz was in the next room. Valley star Nia Bucco, in an interview for July 17th Variety Story about the show's second season, described her reaction after Cartwright told her about the violent domestic incident. "I was like, it's not safe. You definitely can't be around him," she recalled telling Cartwright. So take the TV out of it. Your friend comes to you and says their husband or boyfriend, or hell, comes to you, a guy comes to you and says their girlfriend does the same thing. You, as a friend, would say, this is not a safe environment. Fuck the cameras. It's not safe. Taylor's abusive outburst again just before the cameras began rolling on the second season set forth a chain of events that now appear to have sealed his fate with the Valley, at least for now. Taylor and Cartwright separated in January of 2024. She took Cruz with her, and when Taylor physically hurt Cartwright more than 6 months later, she told the production, their castmates, and executives at Bravo. So the event became the subject of the season 2 premiere, and in the next episode, Taylor entered a mental health facility. As reported in June by Variety, the Valley executive producer Alex Baskin said that Taylor was prevailed upon to seek help by Cartwright, his sister, and his manager and publicist, a team he still shares with Cartwright. Taylor's employers, Bravo and Baskin's production company 32 Flavors, could not mandate that he get help, which is illegal by an employer. Right? So they want to make that clear. Quote, that's a step that someone has to take on their own. In the angry text messages Taylor sent to Cartwright from the facility, however, which were screenshotted and displayed on screen in a subsequent episode, Taylor made it clear that he did not want to be there and blamed Cartwright. You took my job away from me. I've worked so hard for 2 years for this, and you took it from me, read one. Quote, now do the work as a single mom. I am watching the cameras, and you're something not there. And another, I will never, ever forgive you. You destroyed the only thing that I love doing, read a third, and so on. She didn't destroy cocaine. No, I'm joking. Additionally, while at the facility, which Taylor revealed to Andy Cohen on Bravo's nightly talk show, Watch What Happens Live, was Psy Clarity Health, which we did a whole episode talking about Psy Clarity Health. This is a real mental health rehab facility. But he checked himself in, and he does not have to abide by anything. He could have checked himself out at any point, just like he did the second time. Taylor appeared to stalk Cartwright by watching the cameras inside their house on his phone and texting her, telling her he knew what she was wearing. At another, it's so weird. When you read it in black and white, when you read it in print, you're like, God, that's insane. Even though we saw it on television. Isn't that insane? You can read something, even after watching it go down on reality television, you read it and you're like, holy shit, that's dark. We knew it was dark, but when you read it, you're just like, oh, yeah. Was there any other option but for him to walk away? Another text she received from Taylor, I can hear everything. Childish behavior, it read. When Cartwright went to see a divorce lawyer, she showed her some of Taylor's texts, such as, everyone is going to tell me if you tattle on me again. Tattle on me again? What are you, the Riddler? The lawyer looked alarmed. Quote, this is a lot of text messages. He's obsessed, she told Cartwright. It's unhealthy for you. He needs to control himself. This is not good. Cartwright began her divorce proceedings that day, and he was served on camera after coming out of the facility. Are you Jason Cauchi? You have been served. As the season has continued, Bravo's activist fandom. Sorry. Oh, Kate Arthur, Bravo's activist fandom. I don't even know if that that hit me in the funny bone. We are the activist fandom. We are Legion. We are Bravo's activist fandom. Ole! Bravo's activist fandom has become increasingly vocal in their demands that Taylor be fired. On podcasts, on Instagram, in subreddits, all anecdotal evidence, yes, but presenting an irrefutably united front. Viewers have made it clear that they're sick of Taylor's shit. Hey, language! On Watch What Happens Live, which is generally a fun hang and has a party atmosphere, Cohen looked like he could barely stop. Right? Watch What Happens Live is, at best, a silly, goofy show, and I watch every flippin' episode. You guys know that. And it's so funny and silly, and I really like it. And that was, man... And if you watch, who was on the next week or even the next night, and Andy was like, hey, he was like back to his jovial self. But this was just, it felt like when I went to my uncle's funeral, there was just like a real dark vibe. You're like, oh, wow. It felt like being at a funeral, but not one where you loved the person, if that makes sense. And wait. I love my uncle very much. That was a horrible example. But, just that vibe of a funeral home. By the way, I haven't even broke the news to my dad yet. Oh, should we text my dad during the show and let him know? He's going to be shocked. He doesn't really care, but he'll act like he's shocked for me. Taylor, as a result of one of the show's flash viewer polls, showed that Taylor had 0% support from the audience. In an essay for New York Magazine's The Cut, writer Louis Staples called upon Bravo to fire Taylor, writing, I understand why Bravo wanted to follow his story this season, but moving forward, there comes a point where paying someone hundreds of thousands of dollars to repeat the same abusive behavior pattern stops being defensible or even entertaining. This point was perhaps further demonstrated in the July 15th episode, in which Taylor meets with Cartwright to discuss his limited visitations with crews. That is the episode we'll be talking about tonight. Cartwright asked Taylor how many Xanax, you taking Xanax shots, he'd taken before coming over, presumably because of how calm he was. And when he said he hadn't taken any, she said, "Oh, okay, because you're not even acting like yourself." From there, the conversation devolved with, I love that from there, the conversation devolved. Like, that's pretty devolved right there. With Taylor acting victimized. Oh, you love it. By the way, you see this a lot in pro men's groups, or like the Tate brothers of like, we are the men of the Western world, and I will not apologize for being a man. Women abuse us. It's such bullshit. Cartwright saying that after coming out of the facility, he'd gone right back to drinking and partying. She told him that he could have been taking medication for bipolar disorder for years, but now is too late. You've already ruined our family. When Taylor asked Cartwright why she was trying to destroy the father of your son, she said, "It's not on me to take up for you anymore. Those days are gone and over." And then followed up with the devastating statement, "I cannot let Cruz be anything like you, and you should feel the same way." You guys, that was brutal. And I don't mean in the sense of how dare her say that. It was just some things are so true and so real. And she knows he knows that. That reaction shot of Jackson that moment was chilling. It reminded me in, what was it, The Godfather Part 2. And by the way, spoiler alert here. The Godfather Part 2, Michael, played by Al Pacino, is confronted by his wife, Diane Keaton, and pretty much lets him know that she said, I believe she lost their baby, but actually she decided to, trigger warning, get an abortion because there's no way that she would bring a child into this world and have him be like Michael, the Godfather, the head of this criminal organization. And it was very Godfather 2 vibes, that scene. And I think sometimes the things that are so true hurt the most, because I don't think there was anybody watching that scene. And maybe there, guys, I don't know anymore. Maybe there's tons of people that were like, how dare her? But I hope not. That's true, man. And I think lines like that, I hope replay in Jax's memory again and again. And every time he wants to make a bad decision, that he thinks about that line. Yeah. Eventually, with a tearful Cartwright saying she couldn't look at him, Taylor left the house. This departure from the Valley isn't the first time Taylor's toxic behavior has had severe consequences for him. After season 8 of Vanderpump Rules, the national reckoning on race that began in late spring of 2020 caused Bravo to reshape the show's cast. Let's get back into time, folks. In June 2020, Stassi Schroeder and Kristen Doty were both fired because of their past racist actions against Faith Stowers, a black former Vanderpump Rules cast member. 6 months later, Taylor, who like Doty and Schroeder, had also accused Stowers of crimes she hadn't committed, was ousted from Vanderpump Rules, when Bravo opted not to bring him back for season 9, taking a then pregnant Cartwright down with him. Now, remember at the time, I first found out about this on a Friday night. I remember it very well during the pandemic. And Kate Arthur, I remember reading her story. And remember, Jax and Brittany put out Instagram posts saying that they would not be returning. Nothing about being fired or not asked back, that they were not returning. It was their choice. But Lisa Vanderpump confirmed, at some point down the line that he was in fact fired. And this was the season where the last episode was Jax was like, "It's my show." And Lisa was like, "How dare you?" Lisa came alive all of a sudden. "How dare you? It's my show, a Nick Lane show. How dare." I can't believe Jax said it was his show. I can't believe that. And I thought that was very interesting as well. And I almost thought that was a breaking point. On top of his actions, the fact that he would go around thinking this is his show. And it just goes to show you, he had 2 or 3 years out there in the wilderness having to make a buck off of Cameo and all, selling his eBay. And he tried to keep up this brave front that like everything is great and Brittany got pregnant. And I remember the Instagram and everything was great. He's swimming in his pool. Awesome. I don't need that show. And he comes back to the Valley and we find the truth. We find out that, man, it was hard to make a living. Brittany was kind of potentially the sole breadwinner with like Jenny Craig campaigns. She was busting her ass to support that family. And he finally, the Valley idea had been kicking around forever. It had been kicking around, which also in Sheena Shea's new book that comes out next week, My Good Side, which I have read the entire thing, and as a Vanderpump Rules fan, and as a Sheena fan, I really dug this book. You can read it in one sitting, and I kind of wish there was a lot more. But she even talks about there was this idea after season 8 before all of these firings that the Valley was going to start then. That was when there was going to be a spinoff. Tom Sandoval back in the day, I don't know if this actually made the episode that we did during that interview, but he said the same. And then the firings all happened because that was the season with Max and Brett, and it just completely fell apart. And so they went to a smaller cast and they did not do that spinoff. So eventually, Sheena was going to be moved over to that spinoff as well, she confirms in the book. So the Valley had been kicking around, and like Scandival, a lot of people got to have a lot of things because of that. We had the Send It to Daryl. Lala got to buy a Palm Springs house from Scandival. Jax Taylor finally got to have the Valley come to fruition. All of these things on the back of Scandival. Ariana ending her second season as the host of Love Island USA. All of these things, all of a sudden, Vanderpump Rules was popping and the Valley was born. And you would think after that time in the wilderness, realizing how tough life can be, somebody would actually say, oh my God, the appreciation I have for another shot at this is overwhelming. But I think also this man is, obviously there is something truly wrong with him. And I don't say that as like, oh God, this guy's a lost cause. Like I always say, man, our brain chemistries are all wired differently. People actually do have real problems. These aren't fake. But you have to work. You have to work really hard to change any of your behavior, and your mental stability is something just like the gym, which he is very comfortable going to. He has to work a program. And I don't even mean AA per se, which he says he is working now, but like everything, making sure there's a therapist, making sure there is SSRIs involved, all of that stuff. You know, you have to tinker and toil to kind of find the right cocktail. I don't mean an actual drink, but the right kind of cocktail of things that can actually get you back on some sort of road to recovery where you have a little hope. But he just seemed to get angrier and angrier. It was like Jax didn't miss a beat. On top of, I think Jax truly was under this impression that they, or we, the audience, wanted to see him as a bad boy. The bad boy of Vanderpump Rules comes to the Valley. Guess what? The Valley just made him badder. Bad. But I don't think that's where we were. Like, we've changed as an audience over the years. The years of Stassi slapping the shit out of Kristen Doty would not fly anymore. It just wouldn't. And so with that attitude, that relationship between Brittany and Jax, which was probably on tenuous grounds throughout that whole experience before the Valley started filming, it completely broke. And Jax jaxed. He jaxed all over. Now, unfortunately, on top of that, we found out that the Valley, they were not the only couple in the Valley that had issues. And this show, as we found out this season with him going to this mental health facility, is that this show, I was about to say, is just fine without him. No, it's just as dark without him. There are so many other things and other relationships to explore that do not have the full-on stank of Jax Taylor on it. We don't know Janet and Jason's relationship, really, besides what we've seen these past 2 seasons. There's a lot more to explore. We've heard things about Danny and Nia, and there's a lot more to explore. There's a lot more to explore with all of these other characters where he did not make himself obsolete, but he definitely made it a lot easier to not need him. And that, once again, is not meant to be offensive towards Jax, but it's just the reality of the situation. And when you go out of a facility like that, having the behavior that he did while he was in the facility and almost being worse in the facility, and then come back with the attitude, or even the scene that we see in tonight's episode, it becomes an easier and easier decision for all parties involved to make. Now, what do you guys think about this? I think everybody is, by the way, and I will say the only person that I really feel for right now is, of course, our favorite Twitter account, Justice for Jax Taylor. Justice for Jax Taylor, we're going to have to revisit what they've said today. They've probably had one of the toughest days of that account's life. I mean, they are working that AI imaging within an inch of its life. Just furiously create an image where Jax is chained up by Bravo fanatics. What do you want from this man? He's perfect. He has a jawline chiseled by the gods. So happy Thursday. That's where we start the show today, huh? In fact, I was going through some stuff and I found, gosh, this pin from this company unfortunately doesn't exist anymore. Gold Half Moon. They were the ones that initially made the Blocked by Jax on Twitter shirts, which I also have one that I got in 2018 or 19. But they have these pins, and one, you see this with Jax Taylor with the bandage over his nose with an X. And I was like, wow, this is a collectible. I can pass this down to my kids one day. It's going to be great. Also, Sandra from the show, she said, mark your calendars right here, your notes. Mark this for future use. A Jax Taylor cameo right now is $158 as of July 16th, 2025. Let's see if that price goes up or down. I'm on Cameo, I think, for the low price of like 30 or 35 bucks. And I still think that's a very high price. But a Jax Taylor cameo, $158. Let's see if that's going to go up or down. And I'm curious because the Jax Taylor cameos, when he was not working on the Valley after Vanderpump Rules, it'd always be like, hey, man, I just played a character on that show. I played the villain, but I'm really not. And, I'd love to have a drink with you down the line. He would always do these like similar cameos. And he made quite a pretty penny with those cameos. So let me know if anybody gets a recent Jax cameo. I mean, I will keep your identity secret because I'm sure you might not want to admit to that. But yeah, I mean, also, what are the things that Jax could do? He could start a cover band. He could compete with Tom Sandoval in the Most Extras. Jax Taylor and the Passive Aggressives. The Jax's Saloon. But I do worry about the Jax's Saloon. I really don't know what the reality without a rebrand of that place staying open for a lot longer. I also worry about people like Tom Schwartz. Not that Tom was begging for this job in any way, but I thought, okay, well, it's easy to keep Schwartz because he's one of the only people that will truly still film with Jax. And now he lives next door to Jax Taylor. He legitimately lives, they share a wall in the workout area, from what they said on the after show. So Schwartz has went from Scandival to the Jacksoval, and I do wonder then, is Schwartz going to be on the Valley next season? Now, how are you? Are you good? How are you? We're only 35 minutes in. Great. Another supersized episode. How are you? You good? Today was a crazy day. So I found out this information. It went live at 9 or no, it went live at 9, and I knew at 8. I was tipped off about this at like 8, which is a wild way to wake up. And I had to leave because I did like 3 interviews in the studio today over at S71, which I had just and I stayed up really late finishing Sheena's book because I interviewed Sheena today. And so I waited till the news went live so I could post my little Instagram post. But I was just like, I got to post this, and I wanted to have people read the article. I knew it was coming, but I only knew it was coming by like an hour. And I was like, man, it's always the days when I'm insanely busy, when I would want to be online and see what people are saying that I just can't be. I do believe, and People Magazine reported this later in the day, that the castmates did not know about this. This is a surprise to the castmates, an unnamed source says. I will say, from my perspective, this is true. I believe I am the one that broke this news to Sheena Shea. And I don't say that as like, hey, look at me. No, I truly was just like, hey, I knew I was about to interview Sheena, and I was like, heads up, I'm sure you already know about this. And she didn't. I don't think she was surprised. And you will hear that interview that I did with Sheena next week. And I did ask her about it at the end. I don't know if that'll be kept in the interview. I don't know what they'll let me keep in and what they won't. But from my recollection, because that was 10 hours ago now, was that listen, she understands people makes mistakes, but his behavior obviously was very frightening this season. But I also, in my head, in my little producer head, even though I've not produced a lick of television, so hire me, I think whether you like it or not, it's an obvious choice to up Sheena to a series regular on the Valley. And before you throw your whatever device you're listening or watching this out the window, I mean, I think it's obvious. Brock cheated on Sheena, and that just got revealed. Also, you'll find out in her book that that was probably going to be a storyline on season 12, but season 12 didn't happen, and they rebooted the entire show with a new cast. So that Brock dalliance is talked about in the book, obviously, but she hid that from everybody. She hid it from her parents. She hid it from Lala. She hid it from everybody. Um, and in fact, Sheena's dad just found out about this, I think, right before we found out about this, which I was like, what? It was really, I mean, I got to tell you, there are things in this book and that kind of blew me away. And it really talks about, the things that go on behind the scenes in a way. And what blew me away, and we've talked about it on this show because I knew this from other sources, that, and this is just such a sign of disrespect. Sheena started this damn show, is that they gave her like a day player rate. She wasn't even contracted as a series regular for 2 seasons. One of those seasons being season 10, which is when Scandal broke. She got a day player rate instead of being a series regular on that cast. And then the other season was, I believe, season 8. And they still said she was an important part of the show, but she would only be paid for the day. She wasn't, the series regular, which is a huge hit for your paycheck. And here is somebody that, if you read this book, you realize she is a worker bee. She's been working since she was a kid, and she's got this, this, and this. And then the Scandival thing happened, and then after they had, wrapped filming, found out about the Brock of it all. And if you go back and watch the season 11, you can really tell that she is wrestling with something. And I know people really don't want to hear any sort of Sheena sympathy, which sometimes boggles my mind for how much she's put out there on the show, is that she was keeping this under wraps, but you see her wrestling with something. And I can see somebody being really, really confused. And I think people want to paint her out as evil, or how dare she, which is, I guess, what we do with reality star people, And listen, my experience with Sheena, even outside of this show, I've gotten to know her a little bit, not in like a deep, deep way, but it's always been really positive. And, she is really who she is on the show, but there is a deep care and concern for other people, whether you want to believe that or not. But she's also really unique, and that's what I think makes her a very good reality TV show character. I don't know what the reality of Lala as a main cast member on The Valley. I don't know what the use of her this season was, but I can definitely see Sheena, and I asked her that, and she said, listen, I definitely, I think there is somewhat of a void that's going to be there. And whether you like Janet or not, she has a close relationship with Janet, which I think we will be able to explore that. I mean, when these people have deep histories with each other, even if you don't like them, it does make for interesting reality television. So I did that interview today, and that was insane. And then last minute, I got to talk to Chris from Love Island USA, which I think I'll be releasing on Friday along with the OC recap. And it was great. It's hard with these Love Island USA contestants because there's so much discourse around them. Even if you don't watch the show, the discourse and the fandom is so intense that even doing one of these interviews, and there are restrictions for me on these interviews. I mean, not just for me alone. It's different than when you go on Nick Viall or Chicks in the Office or, like the big. So I'm not allowed to talk about certain things. So there are 3 cuts to this interview that I had to make that were such a bummer because I loved the 3 things, and I don't, and I think I'm talking to somebody else from Love Island USA on Friday because I think they liked how this went, which is great. But he was a real nice guy. And what I also wanted to talk to him about is just how shocking it is to come out of this experience and see how insanely popular they all got in such a short amount of time, and what that does to your head, because they're all staying in a house together right now in Los Angeles. And I was like, no way. Like, I knew they were, but they're all staying in the same house. the final four couples or the final four contestants because he's not with Hutta anymore. And then my final interview today was with Taylor Hale in person. She was the winner of Big Brother a couple of seasons ago. Taylor's been on the show before, but we got to do this in person, and we talked a lot about Big Brother because that premiered last week, and trying to like say, hey, if you've never watched Big Brother before, this is what it is. And this is why you should potentially watch it and don't be scared of it. But we also talked about the Valley, got her opinions on Jax and reality TV in general and some pop culture things. And we just had such a fantastic conversation. So that's going to be coming out next week as well. I love that so much. And I think you guys will too. So it was a very busy day. And I came home and I was like, Rebecca, I was just like, I'm dead. I'm a zombie. So I've just been so out of it and not looking forward to doing this and talking about Jax Taylor. So when I always say that when you die, I hope there's some sort of machine that tabulates all the bullshit you did in your life, like how many minutes I've spent talking about Jax Taylor in my lifetime. And will that count against or for going to heaven, if that's even on the table of like, you know what? You talked about Jax Taylor too much. You are going to hell. Like that is not something that is good at all. Okay. It's so funny. I follow this kid, Jake Shane, who's a huge influencer, and I find him very funny. And he has a podcast called Therapists, and he interviews all of these amazing people. And I just saw that he has the band Haim on, the Three Sisters. I love Haim so much. And I'm like, yeah, of course this kid's always happy. He doesn't have to talk to like about Jax Taylor, really. He gets to interview like fun people like the band Haim. He doesn't have to talk about the darkness that lives within Jax year after year. He gets to talk to Haim. He gets to talk to fun people like that. Are you kidding me? Okay, let's get into this fun. By the way, I would love to go like, well, now let's get into some fun stuff. Episode 14 of The Valley. No fart. Let's act like none of this Jack stuff has happened, even though we'll probably refer to it 30 times during this recap, if not more, and get into this episode. I will put a timestamp. I'm reminding myself to put a timestamp in case you want to skip this first 45 flipping minutes of this show so you can get right to the recap. Woo! Oh, also, here's a fun pop culture story. Pete Davidson is going to be a dad. His girlfriend, Elsie Hewitt, they did a pregnancy announcement today. And I got to tell you, this kind of put a smile to my face. I have no connection with Pete Davidson at all and have many times thought about how many famous women he slept with. But I like Pete Davidson. I'm happy. I hope they're happy. I hope it's a happy, healthy child and that they never have to go on a reality show like The Valley. So congrats to Elsie Hewitt and Pete Davidson. That's some good news, right? That's good pop culture news. That makes you feel warm inside the heart, right? Unless you hooked up with Pete and he did something weird to you. But other than that, I think that's really happy news. This episode is entitled Making Up is Hard to Do. Wouldn't it be great if the episode title was We're Gonna Fire Jax Taylor Tomorrow? Psst, don't tell anybody. But it's actually called Making Up is Hard to Do. And the description that Peacock gives us, once again, the third week in a row, is from bottle service to baby bottles, couples find their way out of the young and fast life of Hollywood lights. They have fully given up on episode descriptions on the Peacock app for The Valley. It's like, fuck it, smoke them if you got them. This is completely toxic. We're not writing a description of this episode because we fear it would scare people off. This is scarier than I Know What You Did Last Summer, which actually premieres on Friday, which I'm kind of excited to see. That's been getting some good reviews. Do you see that I'm trying to talk about anything other than The Valley? I always do this. Now, of course, they are coming back from their trip to Hawaii, where Dodie and Luke got engaged. Now, we ended last week's episode with that intense whole scene on the boat where Janet threw out the SA allegations against Danny. Dodie was like, I'm gonna fucking throw you over the boat and like hit you, blah, 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 or like, I'm gonna throw you over all that kind of stuff. It was insane. And we pick back up like we're back in the Valley. And this doesn't just happen on the Valley, obviously, but I always get bummed out. This happened the last time I was really upset about it was the season finale of Salt Lake City, after Heather Gay was like, hey, let's play the worst game that I've ever made up ever. I'm potentially the devil. Let's pull out our phones and find the worst things that we've ever said about each other and read it in sort of a cleansing ritual. I'm like, who? I never want to play any sort of game with Heather Gay. It seems like that would be potentially, hey, we're going to pass around this gun and there's one bullet in it. Like that's going to be the next game at the end of the season, next season on Salt Lake City. I hate when they do that because my thing is, I want to know what happens on the dock. I want to know what happens when they get to their rooms. I want to know the conversations. I want to see Janet talking to Jason going, what the hell just happened? And Jason going, I told you maybe dial it back with actually saying the words sexual assault, like maybe dial it back. Like, or Jason was like, I'm fully in support. Like, I wanted to know those conversations instead of going right back to the valley. Like, I want, it's like you let all of that tension out of the bottle. And that is by design, folks, because they know how dark that is, that they're like, we need to show not the lighter side, because I wouldn't classify this as a lighter episode, but this is an episode where they obviously know that Janet looked bad in this past week's episode. And so I've talked about this phenomenon earlier in the season where they will remind you that she is a human. They will remind you of the humanity of a lot of these characters, minus Jax. Not that, they're purposely going out of their way to not show his humanity, but he is doing a really good job himself. Because remember, he can choose what he wants to say in these scenes, but I think his behavior is so ingrained in him that he fights against that. So you see scenes in this where it humanizes Janet, where you see Janet and Jason's relationship. They are doing that by design. It's not a fake scene, but it's a scene going, hey, you know what? She's a person. She has love in her life. They love each other, allegedly. I just say allegedly after everything now. I don't want to get in trouble. But they are doing that to actually, say, hey, this is somebody we're investing in. We do not want you to hate them full stop 24/7. There is no way Janet is not coming back for season 3, especially after the Jax. I do not think we will see any other cast departures. I could be completely wrong. There was a rumor that Michelle might not come back, but I don't see that being the case. Maybe they'll just tell her to kind of speed up the way she talks. Who knows? But I think at this point, Jax is going to be the big one, and it'll be all hands on deck. I think they will add a couple of people. I think Sheena will become a full-time regular. I think Brock, not a regular, but I think he will be, kind of part-time or a day player. But I do think Sheena will get bumped up. But what do you think? And what do you want to see? And I know that's a hard question to ask because you guys are brutal, man. In fact, I've probably upset you about 10 times. I cannot wait to see the messages I get tomorrow of like, how dare you? First off, you don't get to the point. Second off, I don't like this person. How dare you like this person? Like, all of that stuff. But what do you think? What do you think in the reality? And remember, is that we are not looking for a happy-go-lucky The Valley, because that's never been the case. We are just not looking for as dark as Jax is, right? So that's where we're at. I just had a thought. How dark would it be if Jax Taylor was like, I'm stepping away to host Love Island Games on Peacock. To co-host Love Island USA with Ariana Madix. I'm going to greener pastures. Maybe, is it too late for him to get a spot on Dancing with the Stars? Of like, because after Sandoval, remember, Sandoval would go on shows like Special Forces on Fox and be like, I'm trying to like get back the good name of Sandoval for my family. So Jax now will, try to work within other reality shows potentially. We'll see how that all works. Now, I just remembered, I almost forgot something, but fuck it. This isn't going to be a short episode, so why not do it? Because we need it, right? We need it. And sometimes music is the thing that can bring us all together. No matter how we're feeling, good or bad, music can always just make us feel that much better. And I think we need this now more than ever.